Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and happy holidays to all of you out there in the Rainier Avenue Radio universe. I appreciate Daniel and Mick. Thank you so much for being patient, and we look forward to having a nice conversation today as we are heading into the holiday seasons on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, live from the shores of Leschi, and I assume somewhere down in Vancouver, Washington. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Mick, happy holiday season to you.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you. Hopefully you get some downtime around the house there.
Oh, boy. Never a dull moment around Casa de Cotto, let me tell you, this time of year, but looking forward to some times. We have a little bit of a surgery coming up on the 29th next week. A young man in our house is getting his wisdom teeth pulled out, and it's not me.
Yeah, ouch.
The fun things you go through. We're going to talk a little bit about today, the perspective of the 2025 calendar year, now that we're coming to the end of the year, and ask Mick about moments of the year. And, his leadership style always shares different things that he does in terms of goal setting and looking to the future, and also looking to the past at high school athletics in Washington State during this calendar year. Mick, a little bit of reflection as we approach the end of the calendar year. Are there any particular moments that stand out to you as defining moments? Do you do that where you sit down and you look at specific moments for the year and in high school athletics that were sort of standout moments for you in Washington State?
Not a lot other than when I'm driving sometimes, but that's what I appreciate about this show is it gives me kind of a chance to reflect. You do a great job of bringing us back around to our why. So once I saw your questions, a few of them popped in my head right away. One of them, I think we might have mentioned on the show already, but Centralia swimming at the girls swim meet, state swim meet, the final heat, 8 lanes, and they took a solid 8th. And most teams, who finished last, it's hard sometimes to get it. We had a football team almost leave the second place trophy on the field at Husky Stadium this year because they're so disappointed in not winning. In the moment. And this Centralia swim team finished 8th, and you would have thought they won the state championship. Their kids were so excited. Coaches were literally in tears celebrating with them. And when I asked what was going on, they had set a PR. So they had their fastest time ever. So they peaked at the highest level of competition, and finishing 8th, great. They got their points, got their medals, and all that. But for me, that was really one of those moments where in the midst of everything else, where people can take second place and be so disappointed and not want to accept the award. Yet here you got a team of 4 girls and their 2 coaches celebrating because, it's all about continuous improvement and getting better. So that was a pretty cool moment that, I'll never forget that one. So that one, kind of gave me goosebumps watching it. Yeah.
Mick, how do you and I've had this conversation so many times. How do we go back to emphasizing that in sports and in particular, coaches, for example, setting their own goals in terms of what the scoreboard represents? I think we've seen stories from across the country recently, parents either attacking or lashing out at coaches, players revolting and different types of hostilities being drawn out by people who are watching the games, communities getting upset and end up not only getting rid of the coaches, but firing them and threatening them. And for the bottom line issue is what is driving this in our culture? Is it a whole idea that the mindset is that we've got to be like these professional sports teams and college sports teams, and that becomes a challenge in terms of balancing that. But that to me, what you've just described is the ultimate story of why someone would coach and why kids would participate.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're talking education-based, school-based sports. I mean, we've said this over and over, 95% of our students don't play beyond high school. So you have to enjoy the experience. So how do we change it? I just think we stay stubborn. We don't give in on the messaging for that. We really need to start amplifying that message, in everything that we do. And so, and not in, some soft sell announcement before a game, but really in everything we do. So that's something we've talked quite a bit about internally, how we do it. There was a horrific incident in Hawaii. I don't know if I haven't really seen it on the news over here, but there was a lady, her name's Natalie, and she worked for the Hawaii Association for several years. And she left the association, went to work at schools, again, state retirement system, as an athletic director at one of their public schools. And they had a preseason basketball game, and it was a little contentious, I guess. So she was walking the officials out to the parking lot. And there was a gentleman out there, 310-pound man, with his toddler infant walking around and his wife. And as they're walking out, the surveillance video of the school picks up Natalie walking over there and, talk to him. And, knowing her, she's a soft-souled, nice. I mean, she's not afraid. But, she's not confrontational. She's not looking to escalate. And you can see her approach, talk to them, most likely saying, hey, let's let these guys go ahead and get out of here. And the game's over. We're done. And all of a sudden you see her backpedaling, and this man closes on her and rears up and throws a punch. And she literally leaves her feet, goes flying backwards, was unconscious for over 10 minutes on the ground. Yeah. And so, it knocks Natalie up and over and through his own child, who he then scoops up and holds. Police came, they did their thing. He's been in court, and they're taking care of all that now. Natalie's incredible. No broken bones. Went in and testified in court. They had hundreds of people lined up outside the courthouse and in the hallways of the courthouse to welcome her and him to the courtroom. When we start seeing stuff like that, it's like, again, these are high school sports. 9.5 of those kids playing on the floor aren't going to play in college. We're talking even where mom or dad might have enough money to pay to buy them a spot on a team, aren't going to play in college. And for adults to do something like that. So, that's why watching these Centralia swimmers celebrate like they did was refreshing. Like that's really the true essence for our 95% of our students. So, yeah.
Have you talked with folks like Andy Barnes and folks and you have such an experienced staff and obviously that's been quite detailed and documented here. You have some of the most innovative and brightest minds at the WIAA. And obviously, you as you and I've discussed also, and then people who will watch this know that I sit in a precarious position of being a coach, but I have a kid at a private school and a quite successful private school. But we've had to learn, and obviously my son has written a book about it. We've had to learn how to qualify our victories and the things that he's getting out of it, and but that the what's on the scoreboard.
I don't know if I froze or Juan froze. Daniel, are you there? Okay, Juan's frozen. So while Juan thaws, I'll answer his question a little bit more for anybody watching. A couple other things have changed quite a bit. The conversation this year.
Such a prevalent.
All right, do this again. So a couple other things that, another great story we had this year was slow pitch softball. We ended up getting rained out over in Yakima, and within an hour and a half, West Valley stepped up, and our staff got over there, set up an entire state tournament field around the field, and West Valley and their staff got the fields ready. Those 4 teams got to play their state championship games. We lost some of the consolation games, but we were able to do it. So, hey, welcome back, Juan.
Thank you very much. Went in and pulled a couple of plugs in here, and hopefully that will help us. But my question to you is this: with all of these innovative thinkers you have, do we need to start retraining our coaches year after year? In terms of the situation at the state championship game, where the coaches and the players are so frustrated that they walk away from the second place trophy. Do we need to look at an annual type of a situation where we're coming in and from the folks who tend to win a lot, all the way down to the folks who may not win as often? Do we have to reconnect on an annual basis with what is the thing that we're trying to drive in the sports through our high school communities?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of education that needs to take place, and we're relying right now on the NFHS to get us some research on the value of playing, more so it doesn't become on wins and losses. And we've talked quite a bit about the programming that's available. There's a lot of programming out there, but do we start requiring coaches and schools to engage with it? And then with that comes our CBA agreements and all the bureaucratic stuff. But at the same time, it's either we do something, we get things moving a little differently, or we might lose the opportunity. So that's really one of the things we're looking at. And, in an ideal world, we have a lot of coaches, but we turn them over so fast. Can we get them to the point where they're comfortable coaching, can deal with the pressures that come from parents and communities to win now, at the same time, help educate those families and communities around the true value of education base? So, that's one of the challenges we're facing right now that has to become a real part of our conversation.
Were there any moments that surprised you this year? And obviously you mentioned the state championship game, and I've been there with kids who've done that. And one particular kid took a little medallion that they were presented with and threw it in the forest. I made him go out there in front of his parents and teammates and go get it back because he was frustrated that we didn't win a game. And I don't think the parents were happy with me, but I have a standard I've set for myself, and I just didn't think it was appropriate. But what is there something that challenged the assumptions about where high school sports are headed that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from a few superintendents, some really large school districts, where they've actually brought the question up: do we continue to fund education-based athletics, or do we send it out to the community and make it all community-based? I mean, that's a conversation that's going on in some communities right now. One, either because of funding issues that schools are facing, budget constraints, or number two, some of the fallout that they're having to deal with parents. It used to be, sports are your front porch, right? Nobody's buying tickets. I heard somebody say this the other day. Not a lot of people are buying tickets to come watch a biology test, right? But people are actually buying tickets to come watch, school teams and school competitions. So with that, it's something of interest. And it used to be that those things brought positive energy to the community regardless. And that helped with schools, passing bonds, levies, and all those other things. It's getting to the point now with some of the expectations and conflicts that are happening is where schools are evaluating, is this a positive asset to have, or are we funding something that's actually complicating our funding model? And that's a scary conversation to have going on right now. And so we really need to tell the story about the positive outcomes and why this is, because a lot of people assume this is going to be available forever. And, a lot of people didn't see what's happening to the NCAA happen either. In the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to see some more drastic changes at that level. And we don't want that happening to our 225,000 participants happening in the state of Washington. So I think that's probably the most surprising, is how open some of these conversations have become.
When you look back at the lessons in 2025, and I think that in the world of amateur athletics, or however we define amateur athletics right now, and obviously at the NC2A level, which I think makes your job probably a little more interesting, is the fact that athletes at the collegiate level are now not only getting paid, but some of them are getting paid very well. Are there any lessons that you learned in 2025 that you believe will help shape these decisions as they come up for years to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we have to over communicate. I don't think we can communicate enough, right? I keep a sticky note on my computer that says information is not communication. So we put out a lot of information, but we got to really find a way to communicate so people get it. And one of those is, long term, if we don't continue to generate, fresh revenue streams, we're going to be back to the point of cutting expenses. And what does that mean? Well, we know what happened to football a few years ago, being at high school stadiums. We've talked to a basketball tournament, went from 16-team double elimination. I mean, when a majority of your expenses are your tournaments, then that's usually one of the first places you look. So we definitely don't want to do that. But I think part of it is we have to start that conversation around how do we continue to just maintain what we have, not even grow it, but maintain it. So probably for us, it's just we really need to over communicate, not assume people understand the benefits and also the challenges that exist out there.
Over communicating is something that Mick Hoffman does quite well on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our every other week conversation on high school athletics in the state of Washington. Juan, Cotto, I'm a Rainier Avenue Radio personality, and we touch bases with you on these issues that are so important. And we're not just talking about the wins and losses and the teams. We have a variety of different people who do that on this radio station. We look at the issues from the perspective of how they're impacting our communities and how they're impacting our kids from an educational perspective. If you want to make broadcasts like this possible, donate today at Rainier Avenue Radio.world online. There's a little Venmo, I believe, app, or there's a Venmo little area. Every dollar matters. And as you are looking at your giving at the end of the year, and as you're looking at your giving during the holiday season, if you want to impact shows like this, and if you want to impact kids in the community, Rainier Avenue Radio provides a number of children throughout the Rainier Valley and throughout Southeast and Central Seattle. Actually, many kids through over the city. This is the first time that they can get involved in producing and production and doing these things that we call broadcast journalism, and it has spurred several kids we've seen over the years into careers in this matter. So if you'd like to make a donation to help out with this, please help support community public radio. There's a Venmo, and there's some other ways that you can donate at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Leadership and responsibility, Mick. High school sports can carry an enormous emotional weight for communities. How do you personally balance responsibility with the empathy when difficult decisions are examined or looked at?
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the hardest parts of the job. So, I spent a lot of time today on the eligibility decision. You don't want to tell kids no, but at the same time, we're responsible to, enforce the intent of the rules as the membership has. And every case is unique and trying to be consistent and fair. And so it's hard, so one, we have an attorney who keeps us, within the bounds. And number two is rely a lot on the staff. But I mean, there's not only eligibility cases, but we have, ejection cases of kids, especially if they get ejected a second time, understanding we all make mistakes. We all have to learn from those mistakes. And when's it appropriate to give a second or third chance? And, younger people, more chances, right? So, yeah, it can be really hard. Also, just some of the situations communities go through. I would say on a daily basis, we have to make a really tough decision that impacts, at least one student and sometimes dozens or hundreds. And it's trying to do that in a fair and consistent way. So, yeah, that is definitely my counterpart, Chris, over in Hawaii. I met him my first fall in the job at a meeting, and he got really emotional. He goes, I'll tell you what, unless you're cold-hearted, this job will really tear you up at times because we have to make some really, really tough decisions about really, really good kids. And, sometimes it's out of the student's control. It's an adult decision that created it. And sometimes it was within the student's control, but our goal is we're always going to do right by a student, and coin flip's always going to go to that kid. So, but it's hard. It's hard.
What does leadership look like in moments when there is public criticism? And obviously this year, with a number of different issues and a number of different political issues, Mick, you have had to really bear down and make those decisions as you described. Incomplete information, strong, excuse me, strong emotions involved. How do you balance that out in terms of making those decisions, and how do you lead from your core?
Yeah, well, first I just embrace the grain that it causes. So on my chin and on my head. So I mean, it's really stressful at times. I'm not going to lie. You try to play it off and you try to go. I think there's two different situations. Stuff in your control and stuff out of your control. And so if it's out of your control, all you can do is educate people on the why. We've talked about the gender identity, transgender. I mean, that's outside our control. That's a state law. We have to follow state law. I mean, there's just certain things that we have to do based on that we don't control. That's not our place. When families have trouble with coaches. We have coaches education requirements that, to be a coach, but as far as the employer-employee, so those, you educate people and you direct them back. And so if people want to know, if they really want to know the why, you spend the time to educate people on it. So that's one way you provide leadership, and you try to create systems to do that in a mass education way, or you spend time one-on-one with people to get them the facts. If it's people for selfish purposes, just mean, cruel, ignorant and don't want to learn, I just got to try to ignore it and block it out, right? I'm not a big social media guy for that very reason. Doesn't interest me. Put up my ignorant perspective or selfish perspective. They can do what they want, say what they want. I'm not going to battle. I'm not going to refute all the craziness. Or neither is our association, because we're going to really focus on the people that want to know, because in those conversations we learn a lot, and sometimes it changes the way we do things. So I guess that's probably the best way. You have a great team. But I think just continue to educate people, ignore the noise and listen to the words. So
how does a leader in the position that you were in, how do you encourage patience and perspective in an environment? And I'm sorry for how this question was written, because it shouldn't be driven by wins and losses.
Yeah.
The NFL last night, I got to see the game on television, Monday Night Football. That's a world that's driven by wins and losses. I get it. College football now, and maybe forever, has been driven by wins and losses. I don't know if wins and losses should be driving high school sports, but it's a perspective of it. How do we encourage patience and perspective in this environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to realize it's a balance. I mean, we keep score, we run state championships, we give out first place trophies, we have athletes of the week. Like, it's important. Right? Competition's important in our culture. You compete for jobs, you compete in the economy. So I don't think there's anything wrong with competition. Just what do? We try to keep it a healthy competition. I think that's the difference. It's not a win at all costs. And unfortunately, that's creeping into our world more and more. And so what we have to do is, that's one of the things we rolled out fines and fees for people who were just constantly pushing, went from self-monitoring and the honor system to, okay, it's going to cost you a little bit of money. And in schools, that's a big deal. And man, did we get some pushback, even though the conversation's been going on for a couple of years. And a coach gets ejected, costs the school $200. You want to appeal it and you lose, it's another $200. Because what we were finding is people were appealing just to appeal because there's no consequence for appealing. Waste everybody's time. It sends the wrong message. So I think that's, we're going to have people throughout the system stand up and agree on what we're about, and then, embrace that and be able to make those decisions in the hardest of times and not give in and duck and cover or pass it on. And so I think, that's what we do is, hey, we're here with you. If we stub our toe, we'll own it. We'll fix it. We'll pay our penance and move on. And that's the same thing we ask everybody else. So at the same time, we have to develop a scoreboard that doesn't just count the points. And that's, we're not quite there yet. So we're working on some of that with our sportsmanship committee And how can we recognize these other great things going on, especially for teams that don't get a lot of wins, but there's great kids and great performances that we need to find a way to recognize.
What role should humility play in governing high school athletics at the state level? What can coaches do? What can we do as a community to make sure that the personalities and the people are looking at this from a very, very humble and teaching perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the kid business when we serve kids. I mean, that it should come with it. Unfortunately, it doesn't. There's a lot of people beating their chest, looking for their next job, talking about I instead of we, right? I mean, I was taught early on, it's I when it's bad and it's we when it's good. And, it's important that we don't forget that at the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so I think humility has to lead the day in our leadership styles, which causes us to listen to other people, especially our students, and then to take actions that align with the why of the WIAA and along with the wants and needs of our students. Oh, here I thought Juan was just intently listening to me, but he's actually frozen again. Daniel, we're almost at commercial. We want to go commercial while he works out his tech issues.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
A teacher who hurt their back and got prescribed opioids. A daughter trying to cope with a loss in the family. A friend silently struggling, thinking they'll be a burden if they ask for help. People with addiction come from all walks of life. And the truth is they stand a better chance at recovery with our support. Reaching out and sharing local resources can make all the difference. Don't count them out. More people recover with support. Find more ways to help at supportaddictionrecovery.com. That's supportaddictionrecovery.com.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Queen Bree, inviting you to come join me on Clean Greens Living. Broadcasted Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. On Clean Greens Living, we talk farming, community, and ways to being healthy. So come join me and let's discuss ways to create a healthier you and a healthier community. So I needed to check my kids' immunization records for their school. My doctor told me I could get them quickly online, but I couldn't figure out how. Thankfully, I could turn to Link to Care WA for help. With Link to Care WA, I was able to learn how to use online health portals, use telehealth to talk to my doctor virtually, and even apply for jobs online. I called their free hotline and got help from a real person. Call Link to Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
Happy Hump Day. We're excited that you decided to join us for the party. Fresh Juice is live Wednesday night, 9 to 11 p.m. Pacific time on Seattle's Rainier Avenue Radio with the Juice Pack, including me, Superstar TK, Hindsight Patron, and D-Money. We're going to chop it up with some cool people, play some really dope new hip-hop and R&B music, some games, and maybe even a live performance. Lock us in right now on Fresh Juice YouTube page at youtube.com/@Fresh Juice Media or subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple Music.
Fresh Juice Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station. Heavy rainfall and flooding in King County have caused sewage overflows in many areas, and in flooded buildings, mold can quickly set in. Before you set foot in a flooded building, take these steps to protect yourself from electrocution, mold, and potential exposure to contaminants. If there is still standing water, turn off power, gas, and water before re-entering. Do not touch electrical equipment while touching water. After touching anything that flood water has also touched, wash your hands and clothes with plenty of soap and clean running water. Wear an N95 mask, gloves, goggles, and protective gear when cleaning. Mold can grow within 24 to 48 hours after a flood. Open windows and doors and pump out water after flood waters recede. This has been a Rainier Avenue Radio public service announcement.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome back to your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Daniel, as you know, I love the bumper. I hope you're well. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I am scrambling over here and I am unplugging all of our television sets. It'll be fun to watch my kids come back home from their activities and turn on all of their stuff. And it's not going to work for a second. They're going to think it's broken. But simply, hopefully, we will be able to keep the technical difficulties from having. I understand it could be reindeer. Yes. Why can't I watch my shows? Well, you should be watching Rainier Avenue Radio, young man. Let's see here. Your community radio station, our community radio station. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And if you want to continue to see shows just like this, and if you want to continue to help us provide this type of broadcasting, and the holiday season is always a great time for giving, we have a Venmo set up, and boy, am I familiar with Venmo. Put a lot of money into it, and Clemente Cotto receives. He believes it's a spiritual divination, it's a spiritual divine intervention. That app gets a lot of money through there, and he can also contact his dad and say, "Hey, Dad, put in $10," and he's good to go. Or you go to Rainier Avenue Radio.world /donate. But every dollar matters. Young people who want to get involved in broadcasting, we're doing that, and then some tremendous shows, as you have seen here on Rainier Avenue Radio. And I honestly believe that WIAA Primetime, and I'm very, very proud of it, and I send it out to friends of mine, and they are amazed at the conversations that we get into, the quality of the conversation, and what we do to promote the administration of high school athletics throughout Washington State. And the leader of that organization, Mick Hoffman, is very, very forthright, and he really gives good answers to these questions. And geez, Mick, I don't think that you skirted any issue since you and I started this, which I so appreciate. Never felt uncomfortable. He says, "You're going to be uncomfortable answering this." You seem to be willing to go where we want to go in these conversations, and that's much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, we should be able to defend what we do, or at least explain it, and get opportunities like this allow people to understand why we do and who we are. So a lot of people have misunderstanding. They think we're like the NCAA. We have this overreaching authority and power, and we're more like the NCAA with college football than we are the NCAA with basketball or anything else. So, our members get to make the rules, and our job is to, hold them to those essentially. So be the monitor out on the playground most of the time. So,
Mick, beyond competition, what did you see this year that reminded you that high school sports are about people first? And you touched on that. We are the students, and the activity should put the students first. What did you see that reminded you of that the students are indeed first and foremost?
Yeah, we go to, put on a lot of events, and we rely, I've shared this, a lot, but we rely literally on thousands of volunteers. And we're getting more and more students volunteering at our events, which is really cool. So we were able to make a donation to a local high school that brought a bunch of students, and they ran the ticketing for us at state football. And, you watch 20 kids hanging out, doing some work, dealing with the adults who are trying to get into the game without paying, and listening to them shake their heads and tell their stories about dealing with the public and adults in general. And So those are kind of moments away from the participation. Watching teams going, I mean, our kids get to play in some awesome facilities throughout the year. King County Aquatic Center is, one of the coolest swim venues in the country. And we get to host all our state events there for all those kids. And, just listening and hearing their conversations, the excitement that they get in that. And then watching literally thousands of adult volunteers show up and work events in cold and rain and what have you, take verbal abuse to make sure kids have the opportunity that a lot of them experienced when they were kids. That's what's really cool about our business, is that a lot of the people working in the U, me, coaches, ADs, these volunteers, they love it because it brought something back. It brings something back to them working them now, like they're 15, 16, 17 years old again, that time in their life. So, so again, it is definitely a people business. We are also very fortunate to get to honor people at times, people who are district directors or ADs or coaches, the adults who've made a difference. And it's so, I just love it when you call somebody out who's a stoic person and just thank them formally in a way and watch them literally melt with true appreciation, like they've put in literally hundreds of hours over the years for little to no pay. But when they truly get recognized in a formal thank you, and people are cheering. So anyway, we get a lot of those aha moments that remind us, this is definitely about the people, from the students in the stands to the ones competing to the adults making it happen.
In my community organizing background here, Mick, in the Southeast and Central area of Seattle, a number of the different activists and adult leaders will sit back and they will say, they will be amazed at how bright our students are. I'm never amazed at how bright our students are, but they're telling me that some of these kids are smarter than adults. And I tell them, geez, when they start paying bills, when they start paying for insurance for their car, when they start filling their car up with gas, when they start paying for their meals and rent, that dramatically changes how smart that individual is. I say, adults will always be smarter than the kids when you're handling those types of things in a household, or a single parent household, multi-parent household, or a relationship where you are a guardian. But I have no doubt that the kids are very, very bright. And I think about it 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I was coaching, even 5 years ago, the impact of social media. Not only are the kids today very bright, but they have more ways to channel their opinions. And certainly when I was coaching 15 years ago as a head coach, 10 years ago as an assistant coach, 20 years ago as assistant coach, you didn't have to deal with the specter of social media because it was kind of a beginning. It was in its beginning stages. Now the coaches, I think, do. Now the administrators do. And I'm just wondering, are the kids asking different questions of adults than they did 5 or 10 years ago? How does that work with the advent of social media, and also the fact that kids have more avenues to voice their opinions?
Yeah, I think both of those are critical. One, there's a lot more ways for them to be heard, right? They don't need a meeting in a school building or a local newspaper reporter coming to them. They can put it out to the world from anywhere they want, from their bedroom if they like. So I think that's one, that they have a platform for a larger voice. Now there's a lot more noise out there, a lot more voices, but those things can go viral or catch. I think that's it. And I think number two is kids are a lot more informed now than they ever were. I mean, like it or not, what they get exposed to through devices and the internet and social media, they're way more aware of things going on, good, bad, or indifferent around the world, around the country, forming their own opinions, hopefully not getting them formed by these tools, but using it as a way to form their own opinion and wondering and asking questions. And, I think that has the potential to make brilliant people even more brilliant, right? And as they get that life experience you're talking about, they put that with that, and who knows what they see that we start seeing in our 50s and 60s, they might see in their 20s and 30s, and we have a modern day AI human aspect of that where they're that much faster at moving things forward. So a lot of people see it as pessimistic, social media and all that, but I think there's a chance, if done well or right, that it can actually be a very much a positive for our young people.
What responsibility do you think, and obviously something that you all represent down there in Renton, what responsibility does high school sports have to help students process pressure, disappointment, and transition to make those things a positive category and something that they're willing to learn how to overcome and share rather than being torn up by it?
Yeah, I mean, it really goes back to what we need to start focusing on more with our messaging is the why and the purpose and how to handle those things. We're trying to do it through volunteer coaches education opportunities around the mental health and how do you work with students. So coaches who want to seek that. I think the next step is going to be there's enough good material, enough good learning tools out there inside the WI and outside the WI. I think the next step is our membership having a serious conversation around what do we require our coaches to know and do. Coming out of COVID, post George Floyd, there's a lot of conversation around how we treat each other, how we interact with each other, what's proper, what isn't, where do we find that balance? So I think we've done a much better job of being conscientious of that and normalizing good behavior that way. What can we do now as we deal with the struggle, the pressures and the negative outcomes of competition? I think that's really maybe our next opportunity to serve our kids.
Community and culture, and obviously in suburban districts and urban suburban areas, a little different than in urban areas. However, the holidays do give us a chance for all involved to slow down, and that's the beautiful thing. I was thinking about that, Mick, this week, and my father passed away 30 years ago, but growing up in the 1970s. And us having a time just to spend some time together. And it's been great the last 4 or 5 days since school ended for the kids. So, Sarah and I, we have no plans to go anywhere this year. We're going to be here. But, watching some holiday movies that we enjoy, spending time together, and the connection that you have with family. And also the last, Clemente is going to be off to college somewhere next year. And whether that's in Pullman or whether that's in Colorado or wherever he ends up, it's going to be a major change for our lives. So we certainly have been looking at slowing down and really enjoying this. Does this give an opportunity for the folks at the WIAA? Does this give our athletic directors and maybe even some of our coaches an opportunity to reset expectations around youth sports?
Yeah, and I think it gives them a time just to kind of self-reflect on where they're at, especially for coaches that are in the midst of the season. Some of our basketball teams have done 8 matches. Wrestlers have had a ton of matches, and swimming and bowling's been going on even longer, gymnastics. So I think it gives you a chance to reflect for a minute. I mean, no different than your household. I'm gone from my house 2-3 weeks at a time where I don't come home. And we have a house with our son and daughter-in-law and their 3 kids. So twin 1-year-old boys and a 3-year-old girl. And so I don't know if you can hear this on the broadcast, but I got a couple screaming 1-year-olds down the hall from where I'm at right now. They're normally pretty joyous kids, and they're not happy right now. But it gives me a chance to watch them, because normally I'm a flyby. I might be home for one day on the weekend, come in on Saturday night, leave Monday morning at 4 a.m. So I get to see them a little bit on Sunday, and I'm out the road. And I've been able to spend a couple days here now in the house with them, just kind of watching them parent. And it's like, okay, what are things that my son does that he got from his coaches or us from parents that they utilize? And I would hope our coaches are doing the same thing, like the Joe Ehrman, why do I coach? Why do I coach like I coach? What's it feel like to be coached by me? I mean, I just think people got tournaments. Some teams are traveling, but for a lot of us, it's a little quieter, slower time, even with the pressure of the holidays. The flip side is, we talk about this time with family and friends, and guess what? Sometimes we have kids going home. They don't have that. This is a really difficult time for some of our participants. And, we have coaches who are out there taking care of those kids right now as well. Or giving those that are maybe a little more fortunate financially the opportunity to go out there and do some community service and help in communities or help families that aren't as lucky and get to see what the other side of that opportunity looks like. So, I really think it depends where you're at and how intentional coach is. If a coach feels like they need to do something besides more than win games.
It was amazing. One time, Mick, I was Sarah, my wife, who we've met. She loves service projects. And one Christmas morning, Sarah, the night before Christmas, made about 30 turkey sandwiches and had apples and everything. We were with this one group of people in our neighborhood, and we went to deliver those to homeless people. And being that I sometimes get a little jaded and tired and didn't want to wake up and do it, I sat down with a man who was on the street. And I said, "Here, are you hungry? Would you like a bag?" And he was so happy. And he asked me, "Sir, do you really believe in this Jesus?" And it was one of the best conversations I ever had. And as a matter of fact, I opened up a bag and I ate with him. Since I very, very mistakenly, since I paid for it, I would have sit down and have the sandwich with you. But I cannot believe how genuine the individual was. I could not believe the stories that he was sharing with me, to sit down and have a sandwich with him, and how much he appreciated it. And I shared with him some of my thoughts. And I said, do you believe in this Jesus? And he said, moments like this make me realize that there is a Jesus, and I really appreciate you spending some time with me. And I never really thought about it before. I had never really thought about that, about how the impact of just and maybe I had, but it was so true during the holiday season that you're right. People are out there, and they're really trying to pull themselves into this whole culture and this community. And it was a really unique experience. And I just want to know from your view, what does a healthy sports culture look like, and how can we continue to extend those moments for our kids and the communities that they serve?
Well, I think, as coaches, they do what you and your family did. When I started coaching, I coached for a guy who we adopted families. We were basketball coaches, so we adopted families. There was always families and we tried to do it within our own school and community. And we would talk to that family and let them know, hey, we're going to bring kids from the school. Are you okay with that, with them knowing? Because we didn't want to out a family that maybe was trying not to hide their tough circumstances. And so sometimes we'd go get one from neighboring schools. Sometimes it was our own school. And as this thing evolved over the years, one of the things that I loved is that pretty soon the girls basketball team were like, hey, we want to be a part of that. So now all of a sudden we had our boys basketball team or our girls basketball team working on this project together. Kids start taking control of it, figuring out what the budget was, how much money it was. Pretty soon the cheerleaders heard about it. They wanted to do it. So we actually built a giving community within our winter sports program by doing that. And probably the most telling one was a family that was like a block away from our high school. And so some of the kids could meet us there to help deliver the presents and the gifts and the food to this family. So we caravaned down from the school. We got there and they walked in this house and it was clean as all get out, but had broken windows with cardboard over it, right? So the people were in tough times, but they were taking care of what they had. And we went back and reflected with the kids, like, hey, what do you think? How's this experience? And they're like, we thought all poor people were dirty or this or that. Or a couple of the kids said, that's pretty similar to how my house is, and shared with their teammates. And at a minimum, what we got out of it was getting up for Saturday practice wasn't such a bad thing. Like having the opportunity to be able to jump in a car, drive to the gym at 8:00 on a Saturday morning is a pretty nice luxury that not everybody has. So just, hit different kids in different ways as they kind of reflected on it. And, I think that's one of the things that, we get an education base we don't necessarily get anywhere, in other places. Club teams, some of them do that, some of them don't. But, as a school community-based team, we really have that. So, that should be a big part of it, is that we are community members first and foremost. Mm-hmm. The second part, there should be energy. There should be a welcoming environment. There should be fierce competition. We should be able to knock each other down and help each other up. And at the end of the game, right? Win or lose, we should have respect for each other and appreciate each other. I mean, that's what this should be about. It's no soft toss, right? We're going to compete, and if it's outmatched, we can find a way to make that game. The best team still needs to win or should win, but we're going to do it without embarrassing and at anybody else's expense. So, I think we can build community and we can compete like heck against each other and do it in such a way that it benefits everybody, even the team on the losing side of the scoreboard.
Energy-based community competition, which serves our children, which serves our communities, is what we discuss on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. World. We have Mick Hoffman, who is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Say that 5 times fast. And he is the person who oversees a talented group, an innovative group of individuals who are looking to make sure that kids in the state of Washington get the right lessons about participation in high school athletics. And we talk about that. We really hone in on these issues on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. If you would like to donate to support Rainier Avenue Radio, Daniel will show us a couple of ways to do that. We have a Venmo at Rainier Avenue Radio or Rainier Avenue Radio.world/donate. Every dollar matters, and this time of the year is the time for you who have capacity to really dig down and support organizations in the community which you believe are helping you, and we hope that Rainier Avenue Radio is one of those. So please help us support the work that we do. Please support the work that Rainier Avenue Radio does. Every dollar does matter, and these conversations are brought to you by so many people in our communities, and Rainier Avenue Radio continues to be a resource. Mick, what parts of the high school sports system need patience and long-term thinking rather than immediate fixes?
Yeah, I would say one is how we finance them. We're not in a crisis, but we're getting there. I got to tell you, I don't make a lot of commentary on politics, but I saw the governor's budget came out, $79 million, I believe, in making cuts to education. So I looked it up at the break and I asked, what was the Washington State budget in 2015, so 10 years ago? $38 million. So we've doubled the budget and we're having to make cuts to education, right? And the reason, I meet with House members in the Ed committee and the K-12 committee, and there's a wide spectrum there, which is good. That's what our representative government should be. Some of them definitely frame our challenges as a spending issue, right? And when you see the budget's doubled in 10 years and we're still saying we're underfunded by $7 billion, I think it requires we take a look. So I think we need to do the same thing in schools and at the WIAA, right? We need to take a look at where are we spending our money? Where are schools spending their money? Where are ways we can get more efficient? And it might mean going back to a regionalized playoff system, right? Mm-hmm. I hate the idea of that because I still have scars as a high school kid. Man, Mountain View High School down here at Duke Wallenborn, Donnie Shepard, they were loaded. We got 2 teams out. We took second back-to-back years to those guys. Duke Wallenborn was Gatorade Player of the Year. I tried to guard that guy. Man, he was good. I made him look real good. And so we couldn't get out of our own region, even though we were one of the better teams. And in every sport at every level, we have that where there's stacked teams. And so that's why we have the system we have now. But maybe we have to go back to something like that to maintain, the capacity in the system. Or can we find a way for schools to receive some funding through basic ed to help support athletic and activities? So I would challenge that there's not a more effective intervention program based on numbers and data for attendance and grade point average and graduation rates than what kids who participate in athletics and activities compared to any other intervention program they have, especially for less than 2% of their budget. So I think that's something we've been championing a lot is the idea of funding and finding a way to not lose this opportunity for every single student, because every kid who competes benefits in some way.
What do you believe innovation is most needed right now in at the WIAA, and really you can speak to just high school athletics, across our country. Do we need to have more policy direction? Do we need to have more education of all three groups, right? The participants, the parents, administrators / coaches. Are there cultural opportunities that we need to look at, or is it communication? What do you believe the innovation needs to be focused on?
Yeah, I really think we need to find an innovative way to educate people on the purpose, the why. That'll help parents with how to support their students coming up from kindergarten all the way through, that they don't get to high school with these unrealistic expectations. I think we need to find a way to have the club, community sports, and school sports coexist and function together. So there's not, there's people who pray in all venues. Mm-hmm. And to get rid of that, and to really help parents and kids see the value of this, and make sure our own people see the real purpose of what we do.
As we move into 2026 in this holiday season, what question do you believe that the WIAA must be brave enough to ask itself?
Yeah, I think we need to ask one, are we maximizing our opportunity? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Are we having the impact, or the greatest impact that we should? I think the other question we need to ask out loud is, as a state, do we want all kids to have the opportunity to play? Mm-hmm. Because if the answer is yes, then we got to keep it in schools. If the answer is no, it can be privatized. But if we believe that every student, no matter where they come from, how much money they got, what kind of support they have standing behind them at home, deserves the opportunity to play, then we have to find a way to protect and continue to grow school opportunities, which includes at the middle school level.
Mick, during this season of reflection, what message would you like to share with students, coaches, parents, and communities across Washington State in the position you have as the WIAA executive director?
First and foremost is, don't take the opportunity for granted, and make wherever you're at the big time. You don't have to go chase the big time. You can put in the effort and find a way to make where you're at right now the big time.
Mick Hoffman, as usual, thank you so much for spending time with us on these Tuesday afternoons, and we definitely appreciate it, and we don't take it for granted. And whoever is a fan of our show, which there are many, and you get to see this broadcast, I know that they really appreciate your candor and your willingness to come on and spend time with us to discuss these issues. And once again, never from the basis of who wins or who loses, because individual participation, our students should always be winning no matter where they're at, and we appreciate you so much. On your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio, we wish you nothing but the happiest and, most importantly, safest holiday season. Please do not stuff yourself with turkey. Make sure that everyone at the table has it before you do, and then go ahead and tear it up. Make sure you take care of all of your health and your financial burdens and situations as we come into the holiday season, and prepare for the exciting year in our communities and in our country in 2026. So this is Juan Cotto signing off on your community radio station, WIAA Primetime, Rainier Avenue Radio. .world. Mick, thank you.
You bet. Hey, Juan, Daniel, and the team, very restful and peaceful holiday season. So thank you for being here.